The beast broke free, then guarded the human student like its own. The alarm hit the night like a throne. Brick. Clara dropped her pencil. It rolled off the desk and disappeared under the lab bench. Her beautiful just sharpened. Number 2 pencil gone. That was the thing her brain chose to register, not the alarm, not the red emergency lights pulsing through the frosted glass of the biology building's corridor. The pencil. She was on her knees looking for it when the outer door of Harwick University's research wing blew open. Not unlocked, not pushed. Blown. The door frame was still shaking when she heard it, not a sound. She had a word. For yet, somewhere between a breath and a growl, too low to be air conditioning, too steady to be mechanical, she found. Her pencil clutched. It stood up. The hallway was empty. The emergency lights made everything the color of old blood. She pressed herself against the inner lab door and peered through the narrow window panel. Nothing. Rows of specimen shelves, microscope stations, the old fern Dr. Harmon refused to throw away, even though it had been dead since October. Then the shadow moved. It did not move the way animals in nature documentaries move, graceful, photogenic, politely sequential. It moved the way a storm moves through a room. Everywhere, wrong-shaped. Her brain could not assemble it into a creature at first, too large, too fast. The kind of large that rewrites your understanding of what indoor space means. She did not breathe. It passed her window. She saw the flank of it, dark gray, streaked with old scars the color of birch bark, muscle moving under fur like rope underwater. A wolf. Her academic brain said that. Immediately, her survival brain said something else, something without language, something that meant run. Except her legs were concrete and her hand was pressed so hard against the wall she could feel her own pulse in her palm. The beast paused. Clara stopped existing. That was the only way she could describe it later. She simply stopped mid-breath, mid-heartbeat, mid-being a person. The wolf's head turned. Not toward the alarm, not toward the broken door, toward her window, toward the 6 cm of reinforced glass between her and something that weighed 3 times what she did and had already proved it could remove doors from walls. Yellow eyes. She had read about wolf eye color. She had written a paper on it. She could not remember a single word of that paper. The wolf moved toward her window. She did not run. Her body had its own opinion about that, and its opinion was no. The pencil snapped in her hand. She did not notice. The wolf pressed its nose against the glass. A slow breath fogged the pain, then another. It was smelling her. Dr. Harmon's research bulletin from 3 weeks ago surfaced in her memory. Unbidden. Subject Kira, female, hybrid gray wolf. Variant, elevated cognition markers. Transferred from Linden Institutes. Containment program. Do not approach. Without level 3 protocol. Do not approach. Clara had not approached. She had simply existed in the wrong building at the wrong time on the wrong Tuesday night. Because her roommate was throwing a party and the only place she could study without bass vibrations rattling her skull was the deserted campus research wing, which was supposed to be locked, which was supposed to be safe, which was supposed to be a building and not a situation. The wolf Kira pulled back from the glass. Clara thought, this is it, this is the moment, run or stay. Her legs still had opinions. Kira sat down. Not crouched, not coiled, sat like a dog, waiting for a door to open. Her scarred, gray haunches settled on the corridor floor, her enormous head level with the window, her yellow eyes moving over Clara's face with something that was not hunger and not aggression and not anything Clara had a clinical term for. The alarm kept screaming. Somewhere outside, Clara heard tires on. Gravel voices, the bright slice of floodlights cut through the corridors. Far window and swept the hallway and in. That sweep of white light, Clara saw Kira clearly for the first time. The scars were not from a fight. They were from something else, too even. Too deliberate, the kind of marks that come from straps and needles and a life lived inside a system that does not ask permission. Clara did not move. Kira did not move. The voices outside multiplied. Boot. Steps on concrete. Someone with a megaphone doing what megaphones always do, making a loud situation louder and no less dangerous. Clara looked at the door handle, looked at Kira, looked at the door handle. Again. Kira made a sound, not the growl from before, shorter, low, the kind of sound that has meaning even if you have never in your life spoken wolf. Stay. Clara's hand dropped away from the door. She did not know why, she told herself. Later it was the scars, she told herself. It was instinct, research, intuition, biological empathy, a dozen other clinical terms that sounded better than the truth, which was. The wolf looked at her and she understood something she could not put in a sentence, and she stayed. The floodlights swept the corridor. Again. This time Kira moved. Not toward the sound, not toward the light, she moved to Clara's side of the corridor, placing her body between the window at the far end and the door to Clara's lab. A barrier. Clara stood very still in her lab, her broken pencil in both hands, her heartbeat in her ears, and understood that the most dangerous thing in this building had just decided to guard her. She did not know yet what that would cost. The megaphone outside belonged to Cole Briggs, and Cole Briggs had never once in his 9 years of animal control work seen anything that prepared him for what his flashlight beam caught through the corridor window. He grabbed his radio. Kira is in the North Research Wing. He kept his voice flat because that was what training was for. She has a theirs. A student inside, female, appears unharmed. Static, then Dr. Harmon's voice tight as a fist. Do not fire, I repeat, do not fire. Kira does not respond to threats the way normal. Dr. Cole watched through the glass. The wolf had not moved, defined normal. No answer that helped. Inside, Clara was doing what she always did when her brain hit its ceiling. She inventoried her surroundings. She had done this since she was 8 years old, and her older brother used to lock her in the coat closet as a prank, and it had served her every time since. Lab bench, 12 specimen jars, 1 broken pencil, 3 chairs, a fire extinguisher on the wall. She absolutely was not close enough to reach her phone, which had signal, which was a gift she was not going to waste. She texted Owen, I need you to not panic. Owen, who was in the parking lot of a pizza place 4 blocks away, texted back in 40 seconds, why would you say that? Why would you ever say that? She typed, there's a wolf. 11 seconds. Then a wolf. Then his location pin. He was already moving. Clara looked at Kira. Kira was looking At the far corridor window, her ears, each one the size of Clara's hand, were angled toward the sounds outside. The floodlights moved, Kira's ears moved, with them tracking, calculating, doing the kind of math that had nothing to do with numbers. She was not scared, that was the thing that unstitched Clara's understanding of the moment. Kira was not scared. She had escaped a containment facility, broken a reinforced door off its frame, and was now sitting in an unfamiliar building, surrounded by lights and voices and the full chaos of an emergency response, and she looked about as distressed as a cat in a sunbeam. She looked settled. Clara crouched down slowly. She had no idea why, no protocol for this. Her doctorate was in environmental biology, not large predator behavior, and even if it had been, she suspected no textbook covered tonight. She crouched, made herself smaller, put the broken pencil on the floor and offering a signal, something she did not know what, and Kira turned and looked at her. A long moment. Kira dropped her head. Not submissive, not afraid, more like the head drop of someone who has been carrying something for a very long time and finally set it down. Kira's chest did a thing she was not going to examine. Her phone vibrated. Owen, I'm at the east entrance. There's like 12 people out here. Animal control, some researchers, one guy in a suit who keeps interrupting everyone. She knew who the suit was before Owen described him. Dr. Pierce, Neil Pierce, head of Linden Institute's containment program, the one whose name was on the transfer documents, the one who had visited Harwick twice in the past month asking about Kira's progress and leaving the kind of silence in hallways that makes other researchers lower their voices. She typed, "Don't let Pierce inside." "Owen, I'm a grad student, Clara. I can't stop anyone." She typed, "Find Dr. Harmon. He's out there somewhere. Tell him Pierce is here." Outside, the suit moved. Cole's flashlight caught the silver edge of a tranquilizer rifle being lifted by a second animal control officer, a young one, new, the kind of new that makes overcorrections. Kira saw the rifle through the window. She stood, every muscle in her body reorganized itself. She went from settled to enormous in the span of a single second, like watching a house decide to become a mountain. Her lip pulled back, not a full display, a warning, the language of it was clear even through glass and distance and the considerable barrier of species difference. "Don't stand down," Cole's voice cut through before his colleague could do something irreversible. "Stand down, I said." "Lower it." His colleague lowered it badly, unconvincingly. Kira did not sit back down. Clara watched her, the wolf's attention split between the window where the rifle had appeared and the corridor door, the one that, if Pierce decided to override protocol, someone would try to open in the next 10 minutes. Clara knew the layout. She knew that the east corridor connected to a maintenance access that Pierce would know about. She knew he had visited. She knew he had asked specifically about Kira's containment habits. She pulled her laptop open and logged into the university's shared research server. Not to study, not to write notes. She navigated to the transfer files, the ones Dr. Harmon had scanned and uploaded when Kira arrived. The documentation that was supposed to be a medical record and was supposed to be transparent and was sitting right there in the shared drive because someone had not set the Permissions correctly. Linden Institute, transfer of subject. Kira, hybrid variant female. She started reading. By the third page, her jaw was tight. By the fifth page, she understood the scars. By the seventh page, she understood why Kira had chosen a human to sit beside rather than bolt for any of the three exits she had clearly already identified. The wolf had not chosen Clara because Clara was safe. She had chosen her because she was the only one in the building who had not come in holding something designed to take her down. Kira turned from the window and looked at Clara. Clara looked up from her screen. I see it, Clara said. Her voice came out steady. She surprised herself. I see what they did. Kira's ears moved. The yellow eyes held. Outside, a door banged. Footsteps in the east corridor, not Cole's. His team was at the north entrance. These were different steps, fast, purposeful. The footsteps of someone who has already decided what they are going to do and is only waiting for the geography to allow it. Kira heard them before Clara did. She was already moving, not toward the door, not away from it. She moved to place herself between the sound and Clara, the way water moves around a stone, natural, automatic, as if she had done this before, as if she had been waiting for someone worth doing it for. The maintenance door opened. Pierce did not enter first. He sent in a handler, a large, deliberate man named Garrett, who Clara recognized from the transfer day, the one who had handed Kira's file to Dr. Harmon without making eye contact with anyone. Garrett carried a catch pole, heavy gauge, the kind built for animals that had stopped believing in the possibility of gentleness. Kira went very still, the kind of still that is not peace. Clara stood. She put her laptop under her arm. She did not think about what she was doing. Thinking would have added steps, and steps take time, and time was the one thing the room did not have. She moved to stand at Kira's shoulder, not behind her, beside her. The wolf's fur was warm against her forearm, coarse, real, the realest thing in the room. Garrett stopped. He had not expected that. The student, standing next to the animal, he recalibrated visibly, and Clara watched. The recalibration happened behind his eyes, and understood that this was a man who classified things, and she had just refused to be classified correctly. Miss, his voice was trained for this. Calm, low, the voice of someone who handles things for a living. Step away from the animal. She is not safe. She hasn't moved, Clara said. That's not. She's been 3 ft from me for 40 minutes. I'm fine. Pierce appeared in the doorway behind Garrett. He was smaller in person than his reputation, a short man in a good suit, with the kind of confidence that lives in the gut instead of the posture. He looked at Kira the way people look at an expensive broken thing, not with fear, with cost analysis. Dr. Pierce, Clara said. She kept her voice level and pointed it at him like a flashlight. The transfer documents say Kira's stress responses are aggravated by sudden enclosure. A catch pole constitutes sudden enclosure. Pierce looked at her. You've been reading my files. They're in the shared university server. Bad permissions, hygiene. Something moved behind his eyes, not embarrassment, something more calculated. He looked at Garrett and nodded once, a small nod, the kind with several meanings stacked inside it, and Garrett raised the catch pole. Kira exploded. Not at Garrett. She did not touch him. She launched herself sideways, body between the pole and Clara, 140 lb of scar and intelligence, landing with a crash that shook the specimen jars on the shelves. Her head low, her stance broadcasting something so clear that Garrett stepped back without deciding. 2. Pierce did not step back. He took his phone from his pocket. I'm authorizing the tranquilizer protocol. You don't have authority here, Clara. Did not know if that was true, she said. It anyway, this is Harwick University. Research property, your jurisdiction. Ended at the transfer. Pierce looked at her the way people look at things that are being inconvenient. The animal is mine. The animal. Kira's ears went flat. Clara's phone buzzed. Owen Harmon is looking for you. He's trying to get Cole to hold off on the trank order. Where are you exactly? She typed back one-handed. Maintenance. Corridor East Wing. Pierce is here. He sent a handler in with a catch pole. 3 seconds. Owen coming. She put the phone in her pocket. Kira had not moved. She was watching Pierce with the focus of something that has been studied so long it has learned to study back. Her breathing was even. Her position had not changed. She was doing the thing that Clara had seen. Flagged in the files, the elevated cognition markers Dr. Harmon had noted. In the first month, the ones that made 3 of the Linden researchers request reassignment because it felt, they said, like being watched by something that was taking notes. Pierce raised his phone to his ear. Clara moved. Not fast, not dramatic. She stepped forward, put herself directly between Pierce and Kira, and held up her laptop so the screen faced him. Page 5 of the Linden transfer documents. The section she had found between the standard veterinary notation and the equipment request forms, the section with a heading that had nothing to do with animal welfare and everything to do with what Neil Pierce had spent 3 years building a career out of. She let him read it. His jaw moved once. That file, he said carefully, is proprietary research data. It's in a shared university drive. Bad permissions, hygiene. Garrett had lowered the catch pole. He was reading the screen over Pierce's shoulder, and he had the look of a man reassessing several years of professional decisions at once. Garrett, Pierce said. Garrett did not move. Garrett, I need a minute, doctor. Clara heard footsteps in the outer corridor, 2 sets. When she knew Owen moved like a person trying not to spill something. The second set was slower, deliberate, weighted with a kind of authority that comes from 30 years of knowing exactly how much you can fix and living with the rest. Dr. Harmon pushed the door open. He was 63 years old and moved like a man who had spent most of those years outdoors. He looked at the room. Pierce, Garrett, Clara, Kara, in the time it takes to blink, and then he looked at Kara the way Clara had not seen anyone look at Kara all night. Like a person. Kara, he said, just her name, nothing attached. Kara's ears lifted a fraction. The posture did not change, but something behind it did. Harmon looked at Pierce. Neil Gordon. Pierce's voice had acquired something new, a thin layer of caution. Under the confidence, the way ice forms under fresh snow. This has escalated beyond. I'm looking at the escalation. Harmon stepped fully into the corridor. I see a catch pole. I see a student standing in the gap, and I see Kara, who has not harmed a single person tonight, positioned to protect the one human in This building who hasn't pointed anything at her. He paused. I'm trying to determine what exactly needed escalating. Pierce was quiet. The specimen jar stopped vibrating. Somewhere in the building, the emergency alarm finally cut out mid-scream. No warning, just gone, and the silence it left behind was enormous and clean and full of the kind of information that only arrives when the noise stops. Kira sat down, right there in the maintenance corridor, between Clara and the door, between the files on the laptop screen and the man who had written them. She sat down and her tail scarred at the base, thick toward the tip, moved once across the concrete floor. Not a wag, something quieter than that. A verdict. Harmon got Pierce out of the building in 15 minutes. Clara did not know what words were used. She was in the corridor with Owen, who had found a protein bar in his jacket pocket and was eating it with the focused intensity of a man using chewing as emotional regulation. And Kira, who had relocated to the space between them and the door and was regarding Owen with the expression of a customs agent who has not yet decided about a particular passenger. She's looking at me, Owen said. She looks at everything. She's been looking at me for 4 minutes. You're eating in her space. Owen looked at the protein bar, looked at Kira, lowered the protein bar to his knee as if placing it on a surface too delicate for sudden movement. Kira's gaze moved elsewhere. Immediately, completely, as if Owen had simply resolved as a problem. She did that on purpose, Owen said. Yeah. Clara had her laptop open again. She was not reading the Linden files anymore. She was writing notes, observations, timestamps, the kind of documentation that has uses. She was already thinking 3 steps ahead about. Harmon came back in 20 minutes. Cole Briggs came in. With him minus the radio, his animal control vest unzipped, carrying 2 paper cups of terrible vending machine coffee, like a man who has decided the emergency portion of the evening is behind them. He handed one to Clara. He was the kind of person whose face told you everything and whose mouth told you only what was necessary, and right now his face said, I've seen a lot of things and this is the first time I need coffee to process one of them. She won't let us move her, Cole said. Not a complaint, a fact. She'll move when she decides to. Clara accepted the coffee and drank it. It was the temperature of regret. She drank it anyway. Harmon crouched down near Kira, not close, not threatening. The body language of a man who learned animal behavior before he learned most other things. Kira watched him. The ears tracked his movement with the precision of satellite dishes adjusting for a faraway signal. She's been outside 6 hours, Harmon said. She should be exhausted. She's not. What does that mean? He looked at Clara. It means something's keeping her here. He paused. Or someone. Owen made a small sound. It was the sound of a person who came to collect his friend from a wolf situation and is now realizing the wolf situation has layers. Clara looked at Kira. Kira was looking at the door Pierce had exited through, not with aggression, with the attention of something that catalogs exits, something that has spent a long time around people who close doors as a control mechanism and has learned to count them. The Linden files, Clara said to Harmon, page 5. His face did something she had not seen it do before, a compression. The kind of expression that means a Person has known something for a while and has been waiting for someone else to find it. You read them. Bad permissions. I know. He stood up. I uploaded them. On purpose. Clara looked at him. I needed someone outside the institute to see them, he said, someone without a relationship to Pierce's funding. Someone who would know what they were looking at. He glanced at her laptop. Doctoral student, environmental biology. 3 publications on predator-prey. Behavioral adaptation. Your badge logged. Into the building tonight and the timing aligned. You knew I was in here. I knew before the alarm went off. His voice did not apologize. It simply delivered the information. I did not plan for Kira to breach containment. Tonight, that was her own decision. What was the plan? A much more bureaucratic version of what's already happening. He looked at Kira. She had a different timeline. Owen had stopped chewing. Clara closed her laptop, opened it, closed it again. The thing in her chest that she had been not examining all night pressed forward. Anyway, insisting. 7 pages of documentation. 3 years of Linden Institute research. Protocols with the warmth of a parking structure. And a wolf who had broken free not from the facility alone, but from an entire system, and had chosen, of all the places on this campus, to settle a biology lab where a graduate student was looking for a pencil. She looked at Kira. Kira looked back. What happens now? Clara asked. Harmon reached into his coat pocket and placed a folded set of papers on the lab bench. Transfer documents, different logo from the Linden Institute. Header read Westmere Wildlife Sanctuary and Conservation Research Center. Pierce will challenge it, he said. He'll cite ongoing research necessity. He has friends in the right places. So do I, Cole said. He said it without looking up from his coffee. Clara picked up the papers, read the first page, the second, found the section on behavioral integration. Protocols, the one that outlined what happens when an animal in the program formed a primary bond attachment, and her eyes stopped on a phrase she read 3 times. Human companion contact, voluntary, ongoing. She looked at Harmon. This says. I know what it says. She would have someone would have to. It's voluntary, he said, on both sides. Kira had moved while Clara was reading. She had not made a sound. She was simply now closer, 2 FT instead of 4. Her head at Clara's hip level. Yellow eyes patient in the way that long-lived things learn to be patient when they have finally found something worth waiting near. Clara put her hand down, not reaching, just lowering it, making it available. Kira pressed her nose against Clara's knuckles, one breath warm, then lifted her head and looked at the door again. Ready, that look said. Whenever you are. The challenge from Pierce came in on a Thursday, filed through 3 separate legal channels at once, which was the organizational equivalent of someone kicking over a table to prove they were unhappy with the seating arrangement. Clara's response came through one channel. Harmon had spent 2 weeks helping her prepare it, the documentation, the behavioral assessments, the full timeline of Kira's containment history at Linden. All of it annotated, cross-referenced, filed in the kind of order that makes lawyers either very happy or very uncomfortable, depending on which side of the filing they are on. Cole had submitted his field report, which was 16 pages and included the phrase, no aggressive action toward any Human at any point during the incident. 6 separate times because Cole Briggs was thorough when it mattered. Garrett submitted his own statement. He did it without telling Pierce. Pierce withdrew his challenge on a Tuesday morning. No announcement, no explanation, the kind of withdrawal that happens when someone does the math and does not like what it adds up to. Owen sent Clara a voice message that consisted entirely of a sound she could only describe as a war cry from someone who has never attended a war but has watched considerable amounts of television about them. She was not in the campus lab when she got the message. She was in the parking lot of Westmere Wildlife Sanctuary, 70 miles from the university, sitting in her car with her coffee going cold in the cup holder, looking at the front entrance and not going in yet. Not because she was scared, she had run out of scared somewhere around page 5 of the Linden files, used it all up in one go like a single-use filter. She was not going in yet because she did not know what she was going to find when she did, and she had learned in the past 3 weeks that she preferred to sit with uncertainty for exactly as long as it needed before she walked through a door. Her phone buzzed. Dr. Harmon, she arrived yesterday, settled faster than any animal they've received in 5 years. Staff can't explain it, I can. Clara got out of the car. The sanctuary was not what she had pictured, not a zoo, not a research facility, not anything with the controlled angles of those places. It was wide, grass and tree lines and the distant sound of water and the kind of quiet that is not absence but presence, the presence of things that have room to breathe. A woman named Dr. Fiona Marsh, who ran the Behavioral Integration Program, met Clara at the gate. She had the handshake of someone who spent most of her time outdoors and the eyes of someone who had spent most of her career being surprised by animals and had decided to make surprise a professional methodology. She's been in the East Habitat, Fiona said, walking Clara through the welcome area. We don't push integration timelines. She had access to the full space from day one. She spent the first 12 hours mapping it. Mapping perimeter first, then the interior. Then she found the high point. There's a ridge in the east section, and she sat up there for about 3 hours. Fiona glanced at Clara, just watching, cataloging. We have a researcher here who studies wolf spatial cognition, and he said, and I'm quoting him directly, she is the most methodical animal he has ever observed. Clara smiled. It pulled something loose in her chest. How does she respond to the staff? Tolerates them, accepts food from 2 of them, has shown no aggression. Fiona paused at a heavy door that opened to the outdoor observation path, but she hasn't engaged, not with any of them. She held the door. We thought that might change today. Clara stepped outside. The path curved through low grass and wound toward the ridge Fiona had described. The day was clear and cold, the kind of cold that makes sounds travel farther, and she could hear birdsong and wind and her own footsteps on the gravel and nothing else. She walked. The ridge was visible from the path. Gentle rise with a flat top and a clear sightline in every direction. The kind of place something with elevated cognition markers would choose to spend 3 hours cataloging its new world. Clara looked up at it as she walked. Kira was there, standing at the ridge's edge, facing the path, and Clara knew with the certainty of something that does not require Language that Kira had heard her. Footsteps on the gravel from the moment she came through the door. The yellow eyes were on her, steady, unblinking. Clara stopped. They looked at each other across the distance, the woman who had stood in the gap in a corridor, and the wolf who had placed herself between that woman and the thing coming through the door. And the space between them was full of everything that had happened in the past 3 weeks and everything that was going to happen in the months ahead, and neither of them needed to close it immediately. Then Kira moved down the ridge, not running the deliberate pace of something that has decided. She crossed the grass and came to the fence line, chain link solid. The kind of boundary that means something even to animals that can break doors, and she sat down on her side of it. Clara crouched down on her side, eye level the way she had crouched in the lab that first night with her broken pencil on the floor. Kira pushed her nose through a gap in the chain link. Clara put her hand up, knuckles first. The way you greet something that has lived in a room full of closed doors for most of its life and needs to decide for itself whether this one is worth opening. Warm breath on her skin, slow, deliberate. The yellow eyes closed for a moment. Opened. Something that had been locked inside this animal for 3 years of Linden protocol and catch poles and sealed rooms sat differently now. Clara could see it, not in any one feature but in the whole of her, the way the weight had redistributed, way the scarred gray haunches rested on the grass without the coiled readiness that had been present in every photograph from the Linden files. Settle, the word Dr. Harmon had used. Fiona appeared at Clara's shoulder, quiet enough not to disturb anything. She looked at Kira, then at Clara, then back at Kira. Her expression had the quality of someone who has just seen data confirm a hypothesis they have held for years. She waited, Fiona said softly. We did not know what she was waiting for. Clara did not answer that. She did not need to. The answer was on the other side of the fence, large and scarred and warm-eyed and completely, irreversibly uncontainable, not because no fence could hold her but because what she was now could not be fitted inside any structure that Pierce or Linden or anyone had ever tried to build around. Sorry. Clara pressed her palm flat against the chain link. Kira pressed her head against the other side. The weight of her was real and solid and present, and Clara felt it through the metal and through her hand and into something that had no clinical term and did not need one. Outside, a bird called from the tree line. The wind moved through the grass. Somewhere behind them, Owen was undoubtedly in the parking lot eating a protein bar and waiting for a status update, and Harmon was in his office with a cup of tea, and Cole was filing the last of his paperwork, and Pierce was somewhere doing the math again on a situation that had not gone the way he calculated. None of that was in this moment. This moment had only 2 things in it. A woman who had learned that standing still can be the bravest movement, and a beast who had broken every door they built for her and then built something new and called it home.